Dan, here we are in the Lofto place. So, just do you quickly. There's my final display up there, if I can tilt the camera. That's me replica P38, replica Luger, P08, on the garden hooks, painted black, with a World War I German bayonet in the middle. And I think that looks pretty damn good. So, there you go. Top bloke, CJ, Military Collectibles, was having a clear out the other day. So he sent me a selection of magazines after the battle. Now, I hadn't come across them when I was younger. I think I've seen them for sale on eBay. Now, I'm not going to review all the ones he sent me because, I mean, we'll be here forever. But they range from 1975 right through to 1990. They've got various. I mean, these are adverts in the middle of what's coming up. There's also advert. There's that photograph. That photograph is in everything, isn't it? I always see a photograph on war books. There, that SS soldier with the belt around his neck. They all follow a similar format, and it is like sort of a photograph there. What it was like in the day of the battle, what it's like today, whenever today would be then. And the magazines themselves, sort of the centre photograph and the back photograph, I've got a link in all of them. The books themselves had a limited sort of appeal in the respect of Military Collectibles said it when I was messaging him, but also it says it in one of the magazines that basically, I mean, as time moves on, after the battle becomes almost impossible to identify because Germany was built up and built up and built up. I mean, look at that. There's a prime example of it. You know, to that, it's unrecognisable. In fact, my father, he went to East Berlin. He worked in East Berlin in 94 or 5, around that time. So 4 or 5 years after the Berlin Wall came down. And he said the place still had like bomb sites, packed mud roads, you name it. So it was still almost as if it was the end of the war. But Operation Mincemeat, obviously it isn't now. Right, okay. So what I have done, I've flicked through them all, but I've read one. So that's the one I'm going to concentrate on now. And it is the earliest, I'm sure it's the earliest one. Yeah, it is the earliest one. So after the battle, the Ludendorff Bridge, I'll flick through it and go and mention things as much as I can remember it. Stuck together there. I hope that wasn't my wife sticking bloody coffee on there or something the other morning. So crossing the Rhine. That wasn't like that before. I bet she's put something on top of that. I know she has. Anyway, so Ludendorff Bridge was captured intact by the Americans, even though the Germans tried to blow it up. I'll just show you and I'll just go through from memory if I've just been reading it. Anyone feels free to correct me, that they had it rigged up with, there was like metal, I go back even further. It was built before the First World War, I think. I'm looking now. But basically, when the French occupied the area after the First World War, there was some chambers that the Germans had built into the bridge so they could blow it up. They filled those in. So when the war started and they had to sort of prepare the bridge for possible demolition, they put these like metal sort of trays with covers on, I believe, and they had a clockwork starter, electric starter, and it would be packed with explosives. There was also a manual one, like a striker. If you've seen the film, you'll get the idea of how it would work. Everyone will have seen the film. But when it came to blowing the bridge up, they only got half of what they needed, and it was a lower grade industrial type of explosive. So that's why they did blow it, but that's why it didn't crash into the river straight away. Sorry, just having a light refreshment. So these are the photographs of the Americans called into that inn, which is still there. That's 1975. I'm going to have words with my wife. I was only reading this the other night. Anyway, and this is the guy here, Lieutenant Carl H. Timmerman. In the movie, I'll use the movie as a reference point, George Segal played him, but they changed his name. This guy re-enlisted or stayed in the army, re-enlisted, to to fight in Korea, but he died in a military hospital in 1951. Only, I can't remember, he wasn't that old, of cancer, unfortunately. But you can see the photographs of then and now. Some parts of my hometown are unrecognisable from years ago, so you can sort of get the picture. Yeah, so it's definitely being put on here. I'm going to, there you can see there, look. I'm going to, oh, dear me. There's nothing sacred. Right, so that was after the war. So, I mean, basically, the bridge was used by the Americans. They also built pontoon bridges to get across because it wasn't 100%. It was damaged a lot. They strengthened it, boarded it out. It couldn't really take heavy traffic at first. And as they really started going from, I mean, the Germans were shelling it. There was Stuka dive bomb attacks. I believe the Arado jet bomber, can't remember its proper designation, even attacked them and tried to blow it up. I'm just going to pause a minute because I think I'm back. So you have these crazy ideas or I'm going to do something, I just forget. It's no good being still on the stand, honestly, so talk amongst yourselves. So yeah, I think the Germans, Arado jet bomber, even tried to blow it up and they couldn't do it. Although the ordnance that was going off around it was weakening it all the time. The Army Corps of Engineers, they were working on it, they were welding, hammering, grinding, you name it. And anyway, at one point, before this happened, see, unscripted shit as always. No wonder I don't get many subscribers, mate. I piss around too much, don't I? Just so unprofessional. It's unbelievable. I mean, that's me, innit? That's the type of thing I do. Go to a museum and do things like that. Pose with a mannequin. Anyway, I was hoping there was a photograph in here of me next to something that's on the back of this magazine. But it's just wasting film time because I haven't got a right. Canal defence light. Okay, just keep that in your mind. We might go back to it. Yeah, so the Germans even tried to have frogmen swim down and attach charges to it. They were foiled by this fellow at the back. Canal defence light, which was a Matilda, and this slit was a very powerful searchlight. It was like a searchlight, but I was reading about it yesterday. It sort of, even though the slots I had, it came out horizontal, something to do with like refraction mirrors inside, and it had some. Well, actually, it spotted the frogmen in the water, so that stopped that. They were all captured, I think, or swept downstream. But it eventually fell into the water, just to the in the magazine it says due to the fact that it took so much punishment that even the hammer and the welding, everything they were doing, vibrations, and I think there was 25 engineers killed when it went down, and some of the bodies were never recovered. So yeah, there you go. And there's the pontoon bridges. Again, before and after. But apparently that photograph is on the opposite bank. And there's the Army Corps of Engineers welding. And there it is, fell into the river. And there it is today. After the war, they didn't need the bridge. They need that rail line anymore. So it was abandoned. As it happened in this country quite a lot. I'll probably do this video and think, I forgot to say this, that, and the other. The East Bank, it's been turned into a museum. There again. I mean, you got to remember this is from 1975, so what it looks like now, probably nothing like this. Well, the bridges were named after London bridges, and I didn't realise that. I mean, Patton went across the Rhine before he should have done. So I'm doing this all from memory again. I should write notes down. And apparently he was a bit of a student of history. I didn't realise that. And when William the Conqueror landed in Britain in 1066, he either stumbled or fell, or maybe did it on purpose, and grabbed hold of the sods of earth and, said something along the lines, I've conquered England. Apparently Patton did the same thing. He grabbed handfuls of earth, I think he fell to his knees, on the east bank of the Rhine River in Germany and said, "Thus William the Conqueror." Something along them lines. I mean, feel free to tell me I'm a bleeding well idiot, because I know I am. No one's denying that. You see, Tilbury, Waterloo, Westminster, London. We'll just flick along, flick along. I mean, these are great magazines. Thumbs up. Cheers, CJ. I mean, these are just something that, like, I probably never would have come across. And just reading them gives you an education anyway about things I didn't know about. You know, and I constantly read about the Second World War. Sometimes you just need a bit of another angle, don't you? That's all. And people not to put coffee cups on it. God, that's annoying. She's not here at the minute. Just me and the cats. And that was the other thing there, that I presume it's his son found an old ammunition box on the bank of the river. And I don't know if it was the page before. It might be further along. They found a jerry can or a petrol can. And you think in the 1970s there was collectible military just laid about. How good would that be nowadays? It'll all be gone now. Scenes of crashed gliders, roadway, this looks very similar. Glider across the railway. I mean, a lot of these sort of semi-permanent bridges were taken down by the Germans and rebuilt themselves in the 1950s and 60s as West Germany became more prosperous. That's a Hamden bomber. So these are like the new titles for the magazines. I mean, this is how magazines and periodicals advertise themselves in them days. Hamden bomber, that comes later on. Oh, I am going to have serious words with my wife about that. That's terrible. There's a bleeding book. There was a book under there as well, but that's got a coffee stain on it. Ah, dear me. So this is when Churchill visits the Rhine, and for those who know the story, apparently he wanted to cross over. He was told no. Eisenhower appears on the scene with his entourage, and they had to go back to. So look at the photographs. They're all before and after. He had to go back to where his headquarters were. Whatever. Luncheons were had by Winston, and as Eisenhower left, according to the magazine. I mean, I've heard of this before on YouTube channel videos. I hadn't read about it so much. Churchill said, "Oh, can we go across in Montgomery?" I was like, "Okay." So they went across in a launch, and they were stood on a bridge, near enough under direct fire. They're certainly within the line of snipers. And apparently, when there's Winston there's the young kid. When Winston was told he had to go back, it was almost like he was being petulant. I don't know if it was a direct quote from him saying, "I'd rather die while my blood is hot," or something along them lines. So yeah, luncheon had there, and there's the fella and himself. I mean, the child there, Ted, he'd be older than me, in his late 50s. It shows you how old this magazine is. It survived. 40 odd years being somebody else's possession. My wife, I got a collection of, not a big collection, but a collection of 78s, you know, the 78 thick Baker, not a Baker, like they're a very heavy record in like the original cardboard advertising the shop covers, and a few of them were World War One dated. One of them from 1916. It survived the First World War. There was Zeppelin raids around here. It survived the Second World War. There was definitely bomb attacks around here, right near where I live. It didn't survive my wife because she smashed it. She dropped it on the floor and smashed it. I mean, I've sort of glued it back together and just put it back in the cardboard thing. In disgust, really, to be honest. But anyway, I've got to keep my eye on the ball here. Otherwise, I'll forget important things. So, yeah, this is apparently Patton, when he opened this bridge, said with a pair of scissors, I need a bayonet to do it. So he slashed through it with a bayonet. There they are recreating it. And the French are the only ones who built a memorial. And they made a small crossing across the Rhine. So it was in their area of influence. And apparently it wasn't very popular in Germany at the time. Sort of, you know, Kilroy was here. He's our monument. You know, time moves on. And this is about the bridge at Remagen. The film, it was filmed actually in Czechoslovakia because they needed a bridge that looked the same. And this bridge is called I can't remember. What it's called. I'm trying to look over the top to see what it's called, but I can't. Witwe. The Witwe River, the bridge at the Witwe River in Davy. So apparently the town was getting destroyed. Mining, they were doing some sort of mining, and the town was being slowly demolished, and it had Germanic look to it. So the council were quite happy for them to blow bits up. And the strange thing was the Russians were under the impression that it was an American sort of plan to invade by the back door, stir up Czech nationalism because of all the arms and GIs disguised acted as GIs or someone in the Czech army. So production was halted about 3/4 of the way through. They were allowed back in to finish the film off, but it's the only time, and I think the Russians rolled into Czechoslovakia afterwards. But yeah, I'm probably not getting that 100%. So there it says. It says it's not going to focus. One of the sparks leading to today's Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia was this recent appearance of US tanks on Prague Street. East Germans claimed tanks were sent by the American CIA to aid liberalised Dubček regime. Actually, M24 tanks for World War II were being used by a film company, the Bridget Remagen. So Robert Vaughn played the Major Paul Kruger. He was called something else in the film though, and he actually was shot. That's really annoying. So the Swedish Hamden. So the Arctic convoys going to Russia, they wanted some air cover, so they were flying these aircraft out, various ones, over to Russia, and they were crossing across Sweden. Now, this particular one crashed in the water, crashed on the land, and only 2 blokes survived. And they concocted a story, the Swedes. I mean, this guy literally, the cockpit folded. That's how he landed. He'd never been back since. They couldn't trace the pilot. He was the navigator, can't remember, a specialist, and he literally just stepped out the wreckage. He was all right. The pilot was burned, but there was one. I mean, when they went back in the 1970s, there was pistols still laid there, personal effects, human remains. But one of the Hamdens was shot down. See, they're going to help the Russians. This is bizarre. I never heard this one before. They were going to. So I'll go back a little bit. They concocted the story that they were trying to fly to Norway, I think, and they got lost. So that they would get repatriated, which they did, because you're not supposed to be flying over neutral territory. But one of the Hamdens was shot down by the Russians because it entered a forbidden are. They couldn't get the rear gunner out. He drowned, and the Russian aircraft machine gunned the survivors in the water. Oh, you're kidding, aren't you? So that was just the Japanese that did things, aren't they, and the Germans. And when they got out, there was soldiers firing at them, and they were shouting at Angles. They were English, basically, before they realised, oh, yes, I'm going to really seriously have a word with my wife. Look at that. What's she done to it? So these are the Canal Defence lights, and they set up an attack on this castle to prove to the military authorities that it was a viable option, and it was used. See, on the Bridget Remagen. After the war, it was said that they should have used them in the desert. It had its pluses and its minuses. It was quite a complicated thing reading about it, actually. They did have a pulse and different lenses. The idea was to blind the enemy. But in the dark triangles between the tanks, there would be troops coming. They couldn't see them. But in silhouette, they were spottable type of thing. But yeah, I've been next to one, as we've said. Well, the castle now all empty. It's a caravan park, I think. So that's the Canal Defence light, and on a Matilda tank, and I've been next to it. So that is an excellent look at that there, which she's put a coffee cup. That's it. I'll give her a piece of my mind when she comes home. I probably won't say anything. So anyway, thanks for that, CJ. That's a really nice bit of kit you've sent me that way, and I'm going to work my way through them magazines. I like them because they're sort of all linked together, the little chapters, and provide me some very interesting information. So that's After the Battle magazine. If you can see them, there must be loads and loads and loads of issues of them running over 15-year, 20-year period. If you can see them on eBay, I can't imagine they'll be that expensive. Pick one up, have a flick. Very well worth it. So, this is Stan. I'm going to put another video up today. I don't know which one will pop up first, but either or. So, thanks again, CJ, Military Collectibles. This is Stan. That's After the Battle. See ya.